Alright, welcome back here from Finalizing and Cooling. I paused that last video talking about turning on the tank, how to get rid of the seal and all that comes in at the cap. So now I got my tank on, so I wasn't able to do it with one hand, so I had to pause the video and put the regulator back on. So now we are cooking with that. So our tank's back on, we're fully power, ready to go. And now keep in mind that on the door it tells you your design pressures, so I would probably recommend not going over the design pressures for obvious reasons, but gotta do a little shout out on that one just to make sure everybody is understanding of the door and pressures and that they are under a certain design pressure. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna purge the system out. So we have our suction line hooked up right now. So we're going to open our suction port and we're going to go ahead and crank a couple 100 pounds of pressure through there and blasting it out that side. Just like so. Simple. Just a couple of seconds and a couple of bucks. That could save you a significant amount of heartache in the future. Just to be sure, it's kind of redundancy because of all the techniques and proper channels, everything that we followed. There's no carbon flaking, there's no moisture. We flushed the line sets correctly with, actual R11 flush and all the good stuff. So we did a lot of good things with it, but this is just a final security. So now that we flushed through or purged through one side, we hooked up the other side, disconnect this side, and now we're going to purge through the liquid line, and we're going to do the same thing. This one cranks up a lot faster, so a little slower at that one. Turn the valve on, and that's what we're doing. Blast anything that might be inside the line out of there. And it's just that easy. These are simple little things that you can really do to just peace of mind, give more value to the customer, give more value to yourself, give pride to yourself, to say that you really just did what you can do the best to your ability to do it as well as possible. So now that we're set on that, the next thing is to pressure test. And so we want to test the pressures accordingly. Thermal expansion valves and metering devices are all done through compression nuts, and thing is that pressures are real high and real low and go through a lot of different states, so expansion, shrinks, and whatnot. Compression nuts like to leak, so what manufacturers have done is they've installed a neoprene seal inside. So now obviously when you're brazing, if you do not rag off like we did out here the indoor as well, those seals will melt, and you won't notice anything until over time when the pressure drops down to a certain pressure. When all that shrinks up and now that seal needs to be a thing, refrigerant leaks out of it slowly over time, you end up with a bad TXV, as I like to call it around here, even though it's just a melted seal. So we prevent all that by ragging that off, and then we also test that. The way you test that is the first thing you got to do is open up your suction line. You always only purge, charge, test everything through your suction line. That's a word to the wise. You never ever test anything through your liquid line. Pressures, different things don't equal out right. So what we're doing is we're turning this on, we're filling this up to 100 pounds of pressure. Okay, so once we hit 100, we turn it off. Okay, now this is going to do two things. One, not waste a whole bunch of nitrogen if you got a big leak. Because obviously if you crank it up 300 pounds of pressure and you got a big old leak, oh look at that, now you dump all that nitrogen. So we're only going to fill it up to 100 just to test a low pressure first. And the second thing is obviously we're in the lowest state of pressure that the system will naturally sit in, which is where that seal will go. As you crank it up to 250, 300, 350 pounds of pressure, it expands past that seal, and all that, the pressure inside that thing is, got that compression nut, compression joint sealed off. So you won't see a leak in your compression nut at 300 pounds of pressure. So do it to 100, and you wait about 5-10 minutes or so, and these gauges here are pretty nice. So this has a handy dandy little little green mark, I can adjust the pressures, adjust wherever they are on there. So I could just set this to where they are, and then I'm going to leave them there for 5 minutes. I'm going to go off and do something else, for 5 or 10 minutes, and then I'm going to come back and make sure all the lines are in the same deal. And as long as they are, then I'm going to crank it up to 300 pounds of pressure and leave it for 1 hour. That's a very critical step, 1 hour. So same thing as we're going to crank this up to 300, to where this is 300, this is 300, and then turn it off, valve everything off here, leave everything just the way it is, and then we're going to turn the tank off and take the tank out of the equation, make sure nothing can trickle anything through where it's not supposed to, anything like that. So we're gonna literally close all valves and all ports, and when it's at 300, and then we're gonna sit and wait for an hour while we're doing a lot of other things, hooking up wiring, power, all that good stuff, and then we're going to let that ride. And as long as it stays there at that point, then we'll pull the vacuum, and we'll show you how to pull a proper vacuum through these videos as well. So there will be another video somewhere along the way to show how to pull a proper vacuum, along with all the other things. So through all these little snippets of videos that are 5, 10, 15 minutes long, you can actually see how to do an entire installation, and techniques and tricks and trades, and exactly how we do it and what we do. So if you ever wondered how Infinity Air installs their equipment, you watch all these YouTube videos, and eventually after you see them all, you'll see exactly how we install every single one of them, and how we do what we do. So we always like to do it to the best of our ability and try to do things as well as we can. We always welcome comments, and are always willing to learn and always enjoy learning. After all, that's how you get good at doing what you do, and how you improve on what you do is by learning, and knowing what you can learn is by seeing what other people do and learning how they do. So we like to share all these so you can see what we do, and we welcome any techniques or additional tricks, or anything that you may have to add, and or even anything that you would like to see, or something you need help on with something. You're more than welcome to comment, send messages, whatever you want, and we can always make a video on exactly how to do almost anything with anything heating and cooling that we know how to the best of our ability. And so like I said, if there's something that you need or want to see or having trouble with, we can always see if we can shoot a video on it, and or just answer some questions to walk you through it. So of course, actually, now that it's been this long that this has been sitting here, it's pretty much been almost 5 minutes, so we know that this has definitely not moved even an inkling or attempted to budge in whatsoever capacity. So now that we've been this long, we'll just go ahead and crank it up, and we'll show you here. We'll get this thing raced all the way up to 300, because we're filling up again our suction line and watching our liquid line, and where our liquid line is going to level out at is where our suction line is going to be. So you don't want to do it the other way, because nothing works through the liquid line. When the TXV doesn't really open backwards, it will force back open the backwards, but when you try to purge with nitrogen with this side, what happens is you get a lot of pressure here, not a lot here, and then you'll leave, and some guys do it that way, and they're like, yeah, you just gotta wait for it to equal out. And I'm like, or you could just use this side and it's automatically equaled out. So whatever. But when you fill up with this side, this won't be as high. You walk away for a while, come back, you'll see this one drop and this one raise. Eventually they'll equal out, but it's a lot easier just to use the side that is designed to do that with. So we got this thing set right at 300, and we're gonna do the same thing with our little deal here, where we got our lined up there that we want to see where that one's gonna be and where that one's gonna be. And now we're gonna go basically hook up the wiring and finalize a few things, do a couple other things. We're gonna get the wire through the disconnect here and wired up in there, get the control voltage hooked up, all that good stuff during the hour that this is sitting doing what it's doing. And then after an hour, once we're satisfied with that, we'll evacuate all of that nitrogen out of the system, and then we'll put a Schrader puller in line, the Appion Schrader pullers that go in, that you can hold the Schrader back and have a valve to where the Schrader's behind the valve, and then you pull your vacuum through that side, because it pulls the vacuum much better, and obviously pulls out non-condensables better through when you don't have any Schraders in there. So the Schrader will sit back there. Once the vacuum's done, we'll be able to open that valve and slide that plunger with the Schrader in there, tighten that back up, and then open the valves, and away we go. So that way you don't lose your vacuum by taking the hose off, putting the Schrader back in, and that way you can pull the vacuum without the Schrader. So Appions are awesome. So if you want some information on that and what that is, just ask, comment, and we'll show you what that thing is and how awesome that tool is, and how that $60 can save you a lot of heartache in the long run as well. So of course, as always, stay cool to infinity.